Good morning and welcome back to the lecture series on refugee migration diaspora. So, today we are going to take up a new topic, a new novel, No New Land by M.G. Vasanji, and we will study No New Land through the lens of third space and hybridity. So, in the satanic verses, Salman Rushdie says the following: Exile is a dream of a glorious return. Exile is a vision of revolution. Elba, not St. Helena. It is an endless paradox, looking forward but always looking back. The exile is a ball hurled high into the air. This above quote by Indian British author Salman Rushdie explains the underpinnings of displacement in terms of migration and diaspora. Rushdie here sheds light on the unanticipated psychological strives and emotional experiences of an individual who has been displaced from the place of his or her origin. So he uses various metaphors in this quote, as we can see, which connect with the hopes and repercussions related to migration. The metaphor of a dream of glorious return suggests an optimistic attitude and a hopefulness of returning to one's native land with improved conditions where difficulties have been overcome, which had once caused this displacement. So, at the end of the day, at the back of one's mind, in a displaced person's mind, there is this hope, there is this optimism that the difficulties of their homeland, in their homeland, are resolved and that they are able to go back and reclaim their former life, their former life as a native. Through the metaphor of the two islands of Elba and St. Helena, representing the contrasting natures of the exiles of Napoleon Bonaparte, Rushdie suggests that the two possibilities of displacement are there. On the one hand, the return to a better position and a recovered situation which follows a temporary struggling period of exile. And on the other, there is this possibility of permanent loss of the home nation where one can never return again because the problem becomes deeper and deeper. The problem becomes so much more, so much worse that there is no question of going back and reclaiming one's belonging in the nation state, in their home nation. So the problem becomes so much bigger, so much worse with time that there is no question of reclaiming one's native identity, one's belonging in the home nation. Rushdie describes displacement as an endless paradox. There is this constant struggle of looking forward and yet looking backwards, which causes a never ending conflict between the desire to reconnect to the past, that is, the home culture which is left behind, and the pragmatic necessity to associate with the future or the new cultural surroundings, the host land. So, this kind of a tug of war between the home and the host identity points to the paradoxical circumstances that define an immigrant's experience. Further, Rushdie compares the displacement with the situation of hurling a ball high into the air, which results in a loss of control over it. And this represents the uncertainty and the unpredictability of an immigrant's situation. After a migrant has reached the host nation with hopes for better living conditions than one was experiencing back in her homeland, the future, however, is still blurry and unforeseeable due to various external factors that are yet to decide their conditions of living, their experience of living in the host nation. So, although people actually land in a new nation with plenty of hopes, plenty of expectations, the future is still seems blurry and unforeseeable, and it takes some time to settle, to adjust, to understand how their future is going to look like in the new nation, in the host nation. Displacement of people from their native place to a new distant place has been occurring since ancient times due to several factors, which include political or religious persecution, economic factors, as well as natural calamities. All of these factors resulting in the emergence of many diasporas around the world. According to a proponent and a founding figure of cultural studies, Stuart Hall, I quote Hall here, diaspora identities are those which are constantly producing and reproducing themselves anew through transformation and difference, unquote. Post-colonial conditions created socio-political circumstances of some communities which exposed them to double displacement from their native land. For instance, here we can talk about the displacement of the Indians from Africa after the independence of Africa. So, displacement leads people to utter desolation, causing a sense of unbelonging, negotiation of change or identity crisis, and hence there is a denial or even suppression of a particular identity, which results in assuming multiple identities by the immigrants. There cannot be just one pure identity that a person who is facing displacement or further double displacement can possess. So, such a person will always be defined through a host of influences or identities that shape him or her, right? The distress caused by the negotiation of identity and uprootedness is visible in the accounts written by authors who have been displaced not once but multiple times, as we call it double displacement from their native land. So, Amin Malak in 1993 observes, I quote Malak, one of the most crucial questions that the post-colonial or third world writer faces today involves the demanding affiliation that manifests themselves at emotional, cultural, ethnic, linguistic or political level, unquote. Malak further asserts that the readers can easily point out the shifting boundaries of in-betweenness in the works of Canadian authors whose roots are in some third world country. This includes Austin Clarke, Michael Ondaatje, Neil Bisundat, Rohinton Mistry, as well as M.G. Masanji. Now, coming to the negotiation of identity in diaspora writings, one sees that post-colonial critic Homi Bhabha is introducing concepts, post-colonial concepts such as third space and hybridity, which directly speaks to the immigrant's experience and the immigrant identity. Bhabha in 1996 explains the third space as a liminal or in-between space where the different cultures intersect or interact and form new and distinct cultural identities. A closely related concept of hybridity refers to the new cultural identity that is formed in the third space. So, third space becomes a site for infinite possibilities actually unfolding through the meeting of different cultures and different practices. Migrants who are displaced more than once or twice find it difficult to subscribe to one fixed identity, as I have been saying earlier also. So, they associate with multiple identities and they experience ambivalence and alienation in the negotiation of their identity. So, Moiz Ghulam Hussain Wasinji was born in Nairobi, Kenya, to Indian immigrant parents, and he was raised in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, and later he resettled in Toronto, Canada. So, we see this person's journey across so many places, born in Nairobi in Kenya, and then he was raised in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. Further, he resettled in Toronto, Canada. M.G. Vasanji is notable for writing 10 novels and 3 collections of short stories, along with 2 travel memoirs and a biography. He is a towering literary figure of the 20th century and has published his first novel, The Gunny Sack, in 1989, which brought him prestigious literary prizes, including the Commonwealth First Book Prize. And then his magnum opus happened in 1991, which is No New Land. His novels primarily explore the lives of transplanted and dislocated Asians and their experiences of cultural and racial discrimination. So, Vasanji's first novel, The Gunny Sack, paved the way for his second novel, No New Land. And so, No New Land commences where Gunny Sack closed off, despite a fresh cast of characters. Like his other novels, No New Land also brings forth his autobiographical accounts and perspectives. His first novel recounts Asian arrival in East Africa and the Asians' struggle in demanding their new home in the face of decentering experiences and subsequently their final exodus from East Africa. So his work becomes a kind of a testimonial document that records the witness, the experience of the Asians upon their arrival and their until their final exodus from East Africa. No New Land depicts the experiences of South Asian immigrants from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, who have newly arrived in the world of the Toronto suburb of Don Mills, hoping to begin a new life. This plot is centered around the Lalani family. So we have characters of Noordin, his wife Zera, and their children Fatima and Hanif comprise the Lalani family. They have arrived at 69 Rosecliffe Park in Canada with the hope of starting a new life. However, the reality does not meet their expectations from the land. So, this is an excerpt from the novel No New Land. I quote, "We are but creatures of our origins, and however stalwartly we march forward, paving new roads, seeking new worlds, the ghosts from our pasts stand not far behind and are not easily shaken off." Unquote. The concluding lines of the first chapter from No New Land is pervaded by a sharpened sense of history, a history that almost pierces an individual in terms of the realization it provokes, and it remarks on the need. It is a commentary on the need to make peace with the past in order to move ahead. If the past looms too prominently on the present, it's difficult to move ahead smoothly. So we see in the case of the Lalani family, the values that they thought of as morality and community binding back in their Asian African community and considered as an integral part of their existence went on to play a great influence as they were persuaded in Canada. While these values did not match any Canadian standard, they, however, etched a familiar niche within their local existence. So, through these community binding values, through these moral standards that they inherited from their Asian African community, they are able to etch an identity within their 69 Rosecliffe Park residence. And this Rosecliffe Park residence where Lalanis live become a microcosm carrying their Dar es Salaam's Tanzanian culture. Since the Indian community in Canada is visible and extensive, the newcomers do not really have to find themselves as utterly alien, and yet the experiences are new. For example, women get jobs more frequently and easily compared to men because men are mainly offered temporary odd jobs. This is something characteristic to the multicultural Canadian society vis-a-vis its workforce or its work scenario. Now, the protagonist Noordin faces many embarrassing situations where he is too awkward to behave properly. Despite his work experience, Noordin finds it is not very easy to find a respectable job for an outsider or an alien in Canada. The novel makes a startling or a very striking revelation towards the beginning, where Noordin has been charged with sexually assaulting a white girl of Portuguese origin who happens to be a patient in the hospital where he works. We know as readers that he is innocent. However, he himself questions the purity of his own thoughts. Noordin tries to find guilt in his own behavior, which starts with with his eating pork. So he gets so frustrated and demoralized. He starts suspecting his own intentions, and it results in him experimenting with new things, such as starting to eat pork, which is prohibited in his religion, and also drinking beer and watching lewdly at women, as well as visiting an old acquaintance called Sushila. All these things actually makes him further depressed, and he is always haunted by his old world values. He feels marginalized even within his own family, as his children are too ambitious and they are indifferent and ashamed of his profession, whereas his own wife is wedded to religions. She is very austere and religiously inclined towards religion, and she also scorns his physical cohabitation. So this man is socially scandalized within the familial domain. He is marginalized, cornered, and so the narrative conjoins various subplots, which includes Shamshu Noordin's brother and his involvement in the black market, and then the arrival of missionary in Canada. Further, we have the character of Ismail getting crippled and rejoicing at a new status as an artist, but he also becomes a victim of racism. And further, the character of Jamal, who experiences upward mobility from being a samosa supplier to entering the Ontario bar. And all these experiences, all these different shades of experiences by the different characters highlight the struggles of the immigrants or the outsiders once they land in Canada. It closes with Jamal's persuasion of the white Portuguese girl to revoke her statement and close the case against Noordin. The Lalani household, the 69 Rosscliffe Park building, and Canada, all of these, spaces create or amount to a third space, a liminal and in between space, which becomes a thriving ground for intersection and interaction of multiple cultures, the Asian, African, and European cultures or elements mixed in. So, the Lalani household communicates in three different languages: English, Swahili, and Gujarati. So, we see that the English is picked up from their contact with European culture or the Canadian culture. Swahili has been picked up from their African contact, and then Gujarati is connecting to their Indian roots. So, their proficiency in different languages point to their interaction with different cultural identities outside their house. So, Noordin also provides a temporary shelter to a Ugandan couple in his house. 69 Rosscliffe Park building also provides rich cultural and ethnic diversity, where a dozen races mingle and are conversant in at least as many tongues, right? So, we see a completely hybrid culture thriving in this locality. The party organized by John McCormack, for example, reflects the multiculturality of Canada. And in his party, new Canadians meet the old and learn from their experiences. McCormack also tells Noordin that Canada was made by immigrants like him. So, hybridity, which is a consequence or an upshot of third space, is the formation of new and unique cultural forms due to the blending of distinct cultural elements. So, distinct cultural elements, the pure cultural elements, blend to form a third space. All the immigrants experience a cultural transformation, but it diversely manifests in their hybrid identities. To cite an instance, Noordin and Zera, the husband and wife from Lalani household, both migrate from Africa and come to live in Canada, and yet the cultural hybridity affects them in different ways. In Canada, Noordin acquires a new blend in his cultural values, and he begins to eat pork, drink alcohol, and he's lewdly watching the Canadian women. On the other hand, his wife Zera shifts her perspective in the new society by starting to work, and she is the one that is providing for the family. The new financial freedom puts her at the center of the family. She becomes the bread earner and someone who is literally, wearing the pants in the family. But unlike Noordin, who has become a marginalized member and who has, in a way, drifted from the religious values of Islam, Zera enjoys her newfound freedom in Canada. However, she remains adhered to her ethnic and religious identity very strictly. Zera showcases a unique blend of cultural hybridity where she persistently avoids the sexual needs of her husband. But however, she stays austere regarding, following her other religious values. Although she is not obeying the conjugal demands of her husband, she is otherwise a religious enthusiast and she adheres with the religious values very stringently. She also doubts her husband about, the accusation that he has faced regarding violating a white woman. She asks Noordin, so she also doubts her husband about the accusation that he faces regarding violating a white woman, and she asks Noordin, weren't you tempted? So she follows the new culture where women are financially independent. However, Zera refuses to wear Western clothes. So she is a symbol of hybridity where she has acquired certain elements of the Canadian culture, but not everything. She does not let all the Western values replace her previous training or her previous knowledge or outlook. This hybridity can also be found in the Lalani children, Fatima and Hanif, where, as I have already said, they are comfortable switching between languages. They are simultaneously speaking in three different languages: English, Swahili, and Gujarati, thereby connecting to three different roots: the European Canadian culture, the African culture, and then the Indian roots. M.G. Vasanji's works not only vibrantly depict the Canadian multicultural society, but they rightly present the experiences of double migration that the South Asian characters face. According to Elspeth Cameron, his fiction could therefore also be said to be Canadian fiction par excellence. So they are the typified avatars of Canadian fiction. They have all the essential, quintessential elements of Canadian fiction, and they project Canada as the home country of multiculturalism. Vasanji's characters introduce their past stories and they negotiate the changes, the journeys, and the flux or shifts in identities that they undergo, hence complicating their clear-cut identities. Displaced people can hardly claim any clear-cut identity. They are constantly negotiating with changes and identity flux. So, in No New Land, the Asian African immigrants in Canada are shown as constantly playing around with a sense and status of belonging to another continent, another country, and culture to which they had to migrate once more. So, they had in the first place migrated from India to Africa, and then further they have now landed up in Canada. So this shift, this constant, negotiation with one's sense of belonging, one's status of belonging, becomes the core of discussion, becomes the germ of what defines Vasanji's work, No New Land. So, double displacement to Canadian society creates a third space for the characters, and they are defined by hybrid and ambivalent identities. They posit very complex, layered, and nuanced identities. So, with this, we come to the end of our lecture here today. Let's meet with a new topic and another round of discussions in our next lecture. Thank you.